The civil rights movement was a pivotal era in American history, marked by a relentless struggle for social justice and equality. Spanning the 1950s and 1960s, this movement sought to dismantle the entrenched systems of racial segregation and discrimination that had persisted since the end of the Civil War. The civil rights movement not only aimed to secure legal rights for African Americans, but also sought to transform the cultural and social landscape of the United States. This essay will explore the origins, key events, influential figures, and lasting impact of the civil rights movement. The roots of the civil rights movement can be traced back to the end of the Civil War in 1865. The abolition of slavery through the 13th Amendment was a monumental step, but it did not bring about true equality for African Americans. The Reconstruction era 1865 to 1877 saw significant advancements, including the 14th Amendment, which granted citizenship to all persons born or naturalized in the United States, and the 15th Amendment, which aimed to protect the voting rights of African American men. However, the end of Reconstruction marked the beginning of a period of intense racial oppression known as the Jim Crow era. Jim Crow laws, enacted in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, institutionalized racial segregation and disenfranchisement in the southern United States. African Americans were subjected to systemic discrimination in nearly every aspect of life, including education, employment, housing, and public accommodations. The Plessy v. Ferguson Supreme Court decision in 1896, which upheld the constitutionality of separate but equal facilities, further entrenched segregation and inequality. African Americans faced not only legal barriers, but also the constant threat of violence and intimidation from white supremacist groups like the Ku Klux Klan. The Great Migration, a mass movement of African Americans from the rural South to urban centers in the North and West, began in the early 20th century and continued through the 1970s. This migration was driven by the search for better economic opportunities and escape from the oppressive conditions of the South. The influx of African Americans into northern cities led to the flourishing of Black culture and intellectual life, epitomized by the Harlem Renaissance of the 1920s. Figures like Langston Hughes, Zora Neale Hurston, and Duke Ellington made significant contributions to American literature, art, and music, fostering a sense of racial pride and identity. World War II was a turning point in the fight for civil rights. African Americans served in large numbers in the armed forces, and their contributions to the war effort highlighted the contradictions between the United States' fight against fascism abroad and the persistence of racial discrimination at home. The Double the Fifth campaign, launched by the Pittsburgh Courier, called for victory against both foreign enemies and domestic racism. The war also led to significant demographic shifts, with many African Americans moving to industrial centers in the North and West, where they found better job opportunities and began to build political power. The National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, founded in 1909, played a crucial role in the early civil rights movement. The organization focused on legal challenges to segregation and discrimination, achieving significant victories in the courts. One of the most notable successes was the Brown v. Board of Education Supreme Court decision in 1954, which declared that racial segregation in public schools was unconstitutional. This landmark ruling provided a powerful legal precedent for further challenges to segregation and galvanized a broader civil rights movement. The modern civil rights movement is often considered to have begun with the Montgomery bus boycott of 1955–1956. Sparked by Rosa Parks' arrest for refusing to give up her seat to a white passenger, the boycott was organized by local activists, including Martin Luther King Jr. The boycott lasted for over a year and ended with a Supreme Court ruling that segregation on public buses was unconstitutional. The success of the boycott demonstrated the power of nonviolent direct action and catapulted King to national prominence as a leader of the movement. Following the success of the Montgomery bus boycott, Martin Luther King Jr. and other leaders founded the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, in 1957. The SCLC aimed to harness the moral authority and organizing power of Black churches to advance the cause of civil rights. The organization played a key role in coordinating and supporting local campaigns, including voter registration drives and protests against segregation. The sit-in movement, which began in 1960 with a protest at a segregated lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina, marked a new phase of the civil rights movement. The sit-ins, led primarily by students, quickly spread to other cities and demonstrated the effectiveness of direct, nonviolent action. In April 1960, the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee (SNCC) was formed to coordinate these efforts. SNCC activists were known for their commitment to grassroots organizing and their willingness to confront segregation and injustice directly. In 1961, the Congress of Racial Equality Corps organized the Freedom Rides to challenge segregation in interstate bus travel. Integrated groups of activists rode buses through the South, facing violent attacks and arrests along the way. The Freedom Rides drew national attention to the brutal enforcement of segregation and ultimately led to federal intervention. The Interstate Commerce Commission issued regulations prohibiting segregation in interstate transportation, marking a significant victory for the movement. The Birmingham Campaign of 1963, organized by the SCLC, sought to desegregate public facilities and businesses in Birmingham, Alabama, a city known for its staunch resistance to integration. The campaign faced violent opposition from local authorities, including Police Commissioner Bull Connor. He used fire hoses and police dogs against peaceful protesters. The brutal response to the protests, captured in media coverage, shocked the nation and garnered widespread support for the movement. The campaign culminated in the bombing of the 16th Street Baptist Church, which killed 4 young African American girls and galvanized further support for civil rights legislation.